Okay, everyone. Well, without further ado, super excited to welcome everyone to our panel today, the state of global XR, or the state of the global XR market. Today is a very special day for us because it is the first time in almost 2 years we are hosting a live event. So definitely very, very happy about that. We are joined here by All Night Shanghai. Very excited to have the chance to be with them, at least in spirit. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. So because we've noticed that both between Corona and a variety of reasons, travel being difficult, it's been very challenging to have as much dialogue or conversation between Asia and the rest of the world, or the East, between the East and the West. And in XR, in an industry that's changing and evolving so quickly, that's particularly important. So with events like CES and AWE difficult to attend this year, or virtually, physical events are hard enough, but virtual events with a time difference is particularly difficult. And so today, hoping we can take the first step in remedying that, providing an opportunity for exchange. We brought together an excellent panel of experts. They're going to share a bit about their own expertise, about the things they're seeing in terms of XR trends globally, and then potentially how that relates to Asia or opportunities for companies in Asia. So to just introduce myself quickly, my name is Gavin, Gavin NEWTON-TANZER. I'm president of AWE Asia and Sunrise International. We'll be introducing our panelists shortly. But a couple of just quick administrative things that we always like to go through in every beginning of each All-Night. So the All-Nights are actually held in local communities all across the world. Recently, they've been entirely hosted online, though we're hoping they're going to follow the example of All-Night Shanghai and go back to in-person events, and of course, followed by the major AWE conferences with the flagship conference in Santa Clara this November, and of course, AWE Asia shortly in this coming September. So for those of you that are available to travel this November, we're super excited. Would love to see you all there in person, and hope that's something that we can connect on soon. However, in the meantime, you're always welcome to reach out to us on social media. We do actually have a WeChat account as well. So if you're interested in following our WeChat account in China, please do so. We also have a variety of different upcoming All-Nights if you ever want to connect with those. They're always virtually streamed online. And we have been making a special attempt to record all of them and make them available on our digital platforms, including YouTube as well as WeChat, as much as possible. And of course, for those of you in China, we are hosting our annual AWE Asia Summit in September, September 2nd and 3rd. So if you have questions about that, please do reach out to us. Now, without delaying any further, I'm super excited to have a really awesome panel today representing different elements of XR. And so I'm going to give them each a minute to kind of introduce themselves, tell us a bit about them and their work. And if you have questions, please be free to save those. For our audience in China, 我们是非常荣幸有这一次机会跟大家分享。我们这一次论坛结束之后，我们会有一个好的机会，就让你们向我们所有的嘉宾来提问。所以你们就是先收集好你们所有的问题，然后我们到时候会给你相关的一个机会去跟我们所有的嘉宾来交流。So we're super happy to see you. We can actually see you on our side as well. Very nice to connect with all of you. Now, very first, our first panelist is Elizabeth Barron. She's Enterprise Solutions Executive at Unity. Elizabeth, tell us a bit about yourself and your work.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. And I'm so happy to see everybody gathering in person. So I am a solutions architect at Unity Technologies. And what I do is look at the application of XR for industry and how XR can be used for holistic product creation, engineering, manufacturing, and design, and bringing all those worlds together through the magic of XR and what it has to offer as a unique communication paradigm. Prior to joining Unity, I worked at Ford Motor Company, where I led the immersive realities for product development, and came up with a system called the Ford Immersive Vehicle Environment, which did real-time ray tracing and VR back in 2014 is when we started that. But it was really about that holistic communication and collaboration paradigm. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really excited to hear about your work and what's new at Unity, especially after the listing. And next, we have Louis Bollinger, co-founder and CMO of HOLO-LIGHT. Louis, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. So I'm very happy to join today. My name is Louis Bollinger, and I'm a co-founder at HOLO-LIGHT. HOLO-LIGHT is a company located in Germany and Austria. and we founded in 2015. So we are more than 6 years old now. And what we try to do with all our efforts is to unleash the true potential of VR. And we're doing this by providing an XR streaming solution. So that's an SDK for developers, enabling the streaming of AR/VR apps. And we also provide a solution for end users, especially in the engineering sector, which allows them to visualize their own 3D CAD models, work on them, and all this in a collaborative environment. So across locations, working together. And yeah, we basically work together with a lot of enterprise customers in Europe, but also in the US. And we already work together with companies in Japan. So that's a touch point for us to Asia. And we're looking forward to do more also in the upcoming months and years.
Awesome. Interested to hear more about the enterprise side of XR shortly. So that'll be cool. Next, we have ERIK MURPHY-CHUTORIAN. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Founder and CEO of Eighth Wall, doing really exciting stuff in the web AR space. So ERIK, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Gavin. As Gavin mentioned, so I'm the founder and CEO of Eighth Wall. We're based in Palo Alto, California, and we build the world's leading platform for web augmented reality. And so what we do is build, the computer vision technology that can power augmented reality in a browser without need for an app or an app install, as well as, all of the set of tools around for development of web experiences, hosting of web experiences, publish them globally, and power, lots of web-based augmented reality content for many of the world's top brands and companies.
Awesome. Short and sweet. Thank you very much, ERIK. And then we have Catherine Henry, who is a global VR, AR, XR strategist at Mediamonks.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm so delighted to be here. Ni hao to my friends in Cheongguo, and I also want to say annyeonghaseyo to my friends in Korea who are watching this. I'm super excited to join you today. So I have been working in technology as an advisor in banking, surprisingly, for a good 15 years. And then I was traveling all around the world talking about new technologies and how we could take advantage of them and why they were so important as future investments in making structural changes in the way we work and live. And of course, over the past 2 years, we've seen a tremendous catapult in how we work and live and socialize. And I'm super excited to work now with Mediamonks, where I help companies translate their ambitions, their messaging, their customer relationships through new technologies, either online or in experiential events, with new ways of reaching out to customers and clients. So I have studied virtual and augmented reality. I did my graduate work in economics and management, but I went back after a long time in banking to really focus on technology, which is the thing that I loved. Then I started Palpable Media, which is a virtual and augmented reality consulting firm, trying to help people understand these new technologies and how they worked. I also started the XR Creatives. It's a meetup in New York, very similar to AWE, which just focuses on both virtual and augmented reality applied creatively, as well as various podcasts and videos when I went around the world documenting all the great work that people were doing in Europe, in Asia, in the US, in augmented and virtual reality. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I always think it's a lot better to be able to see everyone's faces. So we're going to go ahead and close that for now. So today, I think we're going to start with a sort of a fun question to get started. This was a crazy year, a crazy 2 years in some ways, and things didn't go the way we expected. But even among those, I think we saw incredible growth and development in XR. So I'd love to hear from each of the panelists to begin with. Surprised you, if anything can still surprise you, what surprised you in your field, in your space, or about XR in general? Could be good, could be bad. Take that question where you would like. So let's begin with Elizabeth.
Okay, well, thank you. I think what surprised me was the resilience of the communities to adopt XR. It's almost one of these inflection points where the technology was there and it was in many cases ripe for innovation to take place using it. But there is a reluctance especially in industry, to go out of the comfort zone and try something new. And this was like born out of necessity. The adoption rates increased. And what I saw was many companies were actually saying, okay, let's figure out how we get a really high-powered laptop, a headset, a HoloLens, or whatever it is in your home so that we can communicate, collaborate, and share and continue to innovate in our space. So I think that was the most surprising to me, is just the all hands on deck type approach to let's get the job done and keep keep things going.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, XR collaboration is definitely taken off. I can't imagine trying to meet with people or trying to convince people to buy VR headsets to collaborate in XR as quickly as we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Eric, tell us a bit. What surprised you this past year?
So, I mean, certainly, at the start of the pandemic, there were so many types of augmented reality that we were seeing that just kind of evaporated immediately. And these are things like AR for, movie promotions, and AR for live events, AR in person, AR for concerts. I mean, if you think of all these things that were behaviors people did the pandemic, all of the kind of thinking around marketing, promotion, and immersive stuff around them kind of disappeared. And then we saw, almost like a couple months later, the rise of these like 4 pandemic related AR activations and experiences. And these are things like social distancing tutorials in an immersive setting, or lots of kind of informational, like understanding the disease and how it progresses, or visualizations of data and how the pandemic is affecting the globe, all in AR and immersive. And we're realizing it's like, this is a communication platform for which it's like relevant to whatever's going on around us. And it was really interesting to see a lot of the use of this technology pivot very dramatically during the year, and still be, very successful and growing, and then start to come back into this year as it, seems to almost keep all of the new types of immersive that we saw exist. A lot of the existing use cases are beginning to come back as everything goes in person, and we're seeing kind of even more growth through this pandemic. And I think, the interesting insight is the pandemic stressed more than ever the importance of doing things remotely and being able to engage with people in their space or in their room. And so we saw big increases in AR on packaged goods, really big, increases of kind of AR through existing digital in-home marketing and advertising as well. And just very kind of interesting transformation of the space during this time.
Yeah, I couldn't have imagined just a year ago more like multiple AR activations during the Super Bowl, which a big sporting event in the United States, or just having even Americans scanning QR codes, which I know my colleagues in China do on a regular daily basis. For us, that was quite new, and definitely a big step forward. Louis, tell us a bit about what surprised you.
Yeah, so first of all, I also think that even if the last year was not so easy for everyone, we could definitely see a continuous growth. And I agree that we also, when we talk to customers, they now realize sometimes even more why AR is relevant to them, and what especially the remote collaboration and these use cases can actually provide. Then on the other side, I saw some tech developments that I found very interesting. If you think about Facebook, they stopped producing their tethered smart glasses, Oculus Rift S, and focus just on mobile devices, which is like a clear sign that AR and VR has to be mobile, comfortable to use. And on the other side, if you look to the content or the apps in general, I found very interesting that that actually apps are no longer installed on the device. If you think about WebXR, browser-based technology, if you think about streaming AR, VR content or apps in general, then the AR, VR devices become actually the display, and all the app is in the end runs on infrastructure which has more performance. And this was like a very cool trend to see, and also supports these shift from enterprises, from the project business to rollouts, to finding the spot in the business where it really benefits, where it really brings benefit. And yeah, this was very interesting to see, and I'm sure that once we meet again, it even gets better and better.
Awesome. And Catherine, what surprised you?
I have to say that there are a couple of big trends, and this is something that I remarked in several of my XR intelligence report series that I produced in 2021. And I covered several different industries. So if you go on my LinkedIn page, you can find them all, but one is on XR wearables, another one is on 5G, another one is on retail. And in each one of these things, it was really surprising to see how the data kind of drops off at 2020. And we have such a break between what we were projecting and what actually happened. And now I think it's going to be very interesting to see how those numbers then leap forward. And I just want to give you just an example of, first of all, the drivers, and then some of the numbers that surprised me. So for example, we had a list of 120 million users of AR to trial new products in 2020. And by 2022, they're expecting 2.2 billion now per month. So that's obviously quite a leap ahead. And that's the same source. It was IDC. So it's really, really surprising. But in a way, is it really? Because virtual now is the new normal. And what we saw during the pandemic was that we're actually finally using technology the way it's meant to be used. We always had the capability, but we never had the reason, the impetus. So that's why I think it's really important to think about these trends, bigger and look for the signals in the noise. So before we had students who were going to school, but now they're working and socializing and building things and learning, very different sorts of skill sets at a much earlier age. And they're doing this all online. Gaming is becoming almost a de facto way of communication, which is really interesting because it changes the mindset too, in terms of how to play. What is gameplay? How do we share our time and share moments? And so this is really culturally a very important time in the United States. And it's an interesting confluence, I think, between technology and timing. So all of these things have come up and kind of disrupted the way that we're working and in many ways innovated it. So what's exciting too is we're seeing, like, I think somebody else mentioned QR codes. We never used those before. As I said, advertising now is expected to spend 70% more than 2020 on AR ad spending. So we're looking at something like $2.4 billion in AR ad spending. So some really, really big commitments to the AR space, and Mediamonks, we're absolutely seeing strong demand. All of this is being opened up, of course, by 5G. 5G is far more advanced in China than it is in the United States. So we're now kind of catching up. And a lot of these new technologies will be unleashed through new capabilities like the one that was announced just a day or two ago at the WWDC for Apple, when they announced the ability to drag and drop photos and create photogrammetry, 3D assets by just dragging and dropping a picture. So that's going to be a big step forward for e-commerce. So we've got some exciting things. I would say on the other hand, one of the things that upsets me is that people they're still not working on a virtualization strategy. A lot of people are thinking maybe this is a short-term thing. We've kind of caught up with the moment, but what does the future look like? Are they really prepared? And that's kind of a question I think is worth exploring.
Yeah, we'll be diving into that shortly, so
Yeah.
don't want to get in there just yet. But thank you for that. But yeah, no, super looking forward to the day where I guess students are studying at home, maybe in VR, and learning how to program in Unity, or working on their own projects for web AR that are going to be distributed. But I think that's a great way to kind of segue into a couple. I'd like to dive in a little bit to each of your specialties and a little bit into your backgrounds a little bit now. So we were just talking about AR advertising, and I think that is a place where we're seeing massive development. And Erik, I think this is a great question for you. I'd love to hear sort of what you feel is driving this shift. What's driving the results in AR campaigns? What is it that is causing more marketers to adopt this technology?
Certainly, there's been really remarkable growth in the space, and we've been able to see it in a lot of different ways. But I think AR is doing something very interesting when it comes to what we think of traditional digital advertising. So, historically, you think of, digital advertising as things like, display ads or video ads or things that you see in a web browser or in a social network. And then everything else is like, traditional advertising, whether it's on television and it's, one-way advertising, or you see out of home, but what this is doing is it's closing the loop on things that are non-traditional digital marketing. So you can go out and see an AR billboard, you can engage with it. And unlike, billboards for the last 100, 200, 300 years, these can actually close the loop on conversions. They can, give analytics to advertisers on how well they're performing, as well as have immersive components and actually be fun. One of the interesting statistics that always seems to come up is how interested end users are in engaging with immersive advertising. We've seen studies that say, in some cases, like 70% of people are interested in web AR advertising. In AR, seeing and participating in AR ads. And this is something that we've seen cultivated, a lot of credit is going to go to companies like Snapchat and Facebook, who have made these types of advertisements so fun to engage with that people see them. These are paid ads, but they want to engage, whether they're face filters or world effects or kind of cool animations they could see in their space. It's a whole new trend for people to want to engage with these brand advertisements and participate with them. And these kind of trends really push advertisers to recognize the value and be able to continue investing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing more and more, and we'll get to a little bit. I'm interested to hear your opinion on where this is going. but we'll get there shortly. So related to web-based, or at least cloud-based solutions, but in a slightly different tack, Lewis, can you tell us a bit about sort of the developments you're seeing in streaming? Again, web-based, but also more for an enterprise sort of focus, and where is that going?
So one of the major challenges that we saw in the last years where we were working together with enterprises was basically that they had to prepare data, that they had to simplify data and reduce polygons, for example, these little things behind me here, because they were not able to run high quality content on mobile AR and VR devices due to the limited performance of the hardware. And this was like a major issue because it's not comfortable actually in terms of workflow. You cannot use data out of the box. If you think about 3D CAD models, if you think about BIM data, realistic game assets, these are all things that need performance to be rendered in high quality. And this was a major issue we wanted to address. And that's why we focused on streaming AR VR applications. Because if you're not have the performance on the device, then go outsource it to external servers or the cloud. Let the application render there and stream the content to the device and use the device as a display. That's like the things we wanted to do. And these bring a lot of benefits and allow, in the end, developers to spend less time on preparation of data. It allows users to visualize content in high quality. And high quality is actually what we want to see when we're using AR VR, because we used to get high quality. If you think about TVs where like screens have 4K and everything looks very good and realistic, this is actually what we want to get. And that's why we jumped on this topic, and we can see an increasing demand from the market in such a technology. And that's why it's very exciting, and more on that maybe later on.
Awesome. I mean, I think that'll definitely solve one of the major issues we hear from a lot of our partners in Asia, which are hardware providers, and always still struggling with like getting a tiny little chip that's supposed to be sufficiently powerful, but not be so hot that it's going to like melt your face and still give you a sufficiently powerful and meaningful experience. And definitely something that hopefully 5G and faster streaming can resolve in the future. But also, I mean, there's always this question of, so now there's AR, there's VR. I know streaming allows you to kind of connect both a little bit. Of course, there's mobile. And I think, Elizabeth, this might fall a little bit in your wheelhouse. How are end users, enterprises navigating between the various technologies that are available to them? When are they using a holographic screen versus buying a Magic Leap or an Unreal or a Shadow Creator device? How are they supposed to make these determinations?
Well, it's interesting because the best strategy, I think, is one where they employ the best tool for the job, that they have a lot of tools in their toolbox that they can choose from. So if an enterprise is looking at total creative freedom, changing the time of day, looking at multiple different products, looking at things in a lot of different perspectives, then the VR paradigm is just perfect for that, because you do have so much freedom in how you can change your reality and make it a new reality. For the other XR spaces, for MR and AR, it's really interesting to me because the spaces allow so much control of understanding your physical world and then presenting new options. So since I came from the automotive space, I'll give a little bit of that flavor. But if the automotive world still really likes physical models, they love clay models, and they still dress them. It's called dressing them, but they basically make them look like a real car. But one of the really powerful aspects that is being used a lot in automotive is looking at clay and then modifying it in the virtual world. So putting on a HoloLens or a Magic Leap and looking at one option and another option. And now you can start to cycle through. You can see things in the lighting that is so important to the way that the artistic community thinks in automotive. And so there's a lot of goodness in that. So I think what is happening is that if the minds are open for the people that are using the tech, they'll find the best tool for the job. And another aspect of virtual reality, which I think is really fascinating, is there's a big push now for VR with passive haptics. So that's another, really great tool in the toolbox. So employing some 3D printed parts, putting them in locations, and then marrying the virtual world to the physical world, and then having interaction and having things happen in the virtual world, but you're touching them physically. And it makes sense because you're properly registered and located in the world. There's a continuum of tech, there's a continuum of uses, but one of the things that holds true, and this is like if I can give one pearl of wisdom, this might be it. It's that when you're in these environments, immersion is social, and it allows us to amplify meaningful communications. And so we can create these infinitely scalable connected spaces where we can relate to the things that we're producing. And so because an enterprise is keen on developing the best product that's possible, being in a globally connected team, I mean, it's just kind of fun to be here on Zoom and, be here with our friends in Asia, having a conversation. And then when you think about being immersed and everybody's looking at the same product, and, somebody's in Shanghai and, somebody is in Michigan, and they're having a conversation and relating to the same thing at the same time. That's really a great way of doing product development. It's really giving that understanding, and it allows this freedom so that you can say, is this going to be a VR review or a AR or MR, or what will it be? But the thing is that you're representing things properly in context, and sharing and being social, and technically social and artistically social, and being very creative in the way that products are developed. And then that provides more insight than you would have had if you were just sharing a spreadsheet in Zoom. No offense to Zoom.
No, we always like to pick on Zoom. No problems there. But no, thank you for that. And I think a huge part of that is also going to be as people become more familiar with their options for mobile, their options for AR, their options for VR, et cetera. And I know it's going to come down to many of us to evangelize the various technologies and make that available. But not just us. Sometimes it also helps when the big players, at least in the West, when the big players decide to play ball too. And Catherine, I think this is a great way to kind of talk a bit about what some of these big players are doing. So, I mean, when is it, what have you seen coming out of Google, Facebook, Apple, in terms of driving adoption of XR technologies? You want to give us a little bit of feedback there?
Sure. Well, again, I wanted to refer back to the last big announcement we had. Well, over the past month, we've had two major announcements. One was by Snap, that they are working on a set of eyewear, of glasses that are now only available to developers and creators. So unfortunately, they aren't available to the mass public, but they will be. And that's going to be interesting because their business model is focused on advertising. And so what they're really looking at is not so much simultaneous localization and mapping, which is kind of the holy grail and the hard thing to do. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it's SLAM. And that means that when you've got the headset, whether it's whatever it looks like, let's just say glasses, you're walking down the street and you're getting information as you move. So not only does it have to find you, but it also has to find the information that is relevant to you in your area. And those of us who've called a cab via Uber know that sometimes the localization isn't that easy. So can you imagine having to do all this heavy computational calculations in a very lightweight glass, even if it is combined with either your phone or your watch? So that's the major challenge. And for Snap, they're just basically looking to overlay filters and to create a version of your life that you can then upload to the internet and share. And they get a lot of advertising revenues in exchange. So it's pretty simple, or at least we hope it is, but it's still kind of a surprising play. And I think it's an interesting tactic from Snap. Now, what's interesting too is, that's a social media platform that's now going towards hardware, and the same can be said of Facebook. So Facebook is doing effectively the same thing. Social media giant that has invested very, very heavily into the Oculus Quest, which now the Quest 2 dominates the hardware market, and so they've got something about 50% of market share and 58.6% of the market share on Steam. So the users who are accessing content, that's the number of people that they've got. So it's an extraordinary penetration rate for a company that's gotten into this relatively late, but they are super committed to this space. And they already have Project Aria, which is glasses that are in beta. So people are actually wearing them around the Facebook campus. Facebook is dead set on capturing this market. Now, as we know, there are lots of other issues around Facebook. People say, well, we're concerned about privacy. I don't want to have to log in all the time with a Facebook address. Other people are saying that's great because all of my friends are going to be there. All the content that I want is going to be in one place. Isn't this wonderful? And at a low price point at $299 here in the United States, that is very, very accessible for a lot of people. Now, the big question mark, of course, are those at Apple. Many people were signaling, some of my colleagues in the industry saying this is when we're going to get the announcement about the eyewear. But what's interesting is we didn't really get that. We did get, as I said, object capture. That talked about how we can import assets and convert them very rapidly into 3D, which is itself a tremendous feat. It's a big announcement. The other thing is 3D mapping. Now, most of us associate 3D mapping in the States with Google because that's been a huge priority for them for the past several years. But 3D mapping, all of these little steps, again, looking at the signals and trying to figure out where they're all going. For me, this is the preparation, the groundwork for the glasses. So all of this work that they're now opening up to developers, it's going to enable people then to upload the same technology into the glasses. But the glasses aren't expected to come till later, till after Facebook. So if Facebook launches one in, say, first quarter of 22, then I really believe that the earliest Apple will come out will be the end of 2022. So it's going to be a really neck and neck race. There are other contenders. And if you want to see, as I said, I've got a 50-page report on this that I just developed a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago. So it's very, very fresh. There's some 15 other virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality headsets all outlined in that XR Wearables Report 2021. And that, again, is on my website on LinkedIn.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. And I actually want to come back to some of this actually for a little bit. I know some of our panelists might want to respond. But as we do so, I want to talk about one of the things that I think always really stands out for us, which is use cases. So it's great to see technological evolution, smart glasses development. But the big question is always, how are we actually using the technology now? How is it actually getting used either by enterprise or advertisers, et cetera? Because that's ultimately what's going to take things forward. So Erik, I want to start with you first, maybe going into what is like the most exciting, interesting, engaging use case either that you've seen at Eighth Wall or in your space, and maybe actually use this opportunity to address sort of, I'm very curious to hear your opinion as well, and sort of responding to what Catherine said about some of these big players and the headsets they're developing and how you think of that as mostly a web AR player.
Okay, so got a couple questions there. So let's start with the first one. What are things that are most interesting? I can point to a lot of really kind of cool changes that have happened in the space that each are sort of in a different vertical. Maybe one example, this was like one of my favorite kind of AR marketing style campaigns that I've seen was done in Brazil. One of the largest banks in Brazil, Bradesco, did a 30-second TV spot during nationwide TV broadcast and show. I think it was like within 5 minutes, they had 250,000 people engage with this TV spot. And they know that, certainly they understand that because if you're in this immersive experience, it's loaded from a web server, you're able to get kind of, aggregate views of the number of people using it. One of the interesting things is it's like a 30-second commercial, but people were engaging with it for hours afterwards. And if you think about it, like what's the cost of that ad buy? What is that time spent? How do you kind of continue? I mean, these are really impressive things when you think about what you can do with immersive technology, engaging with your end users and customers as a brand or company. But then, full pivot, we see other types of use cases that are just transformations of existing businesses. So a great example for us in this case, I mean, Saatchi Art is a e-commerce website where you can view and purchase art. And last year they launched an eighth wall powered insight activation, which allows you to view any piece of their artwork in your space. And so instantly a catalog of over 1.4 million artwork pieces, just come online in AR, and in a way that, this is really very much a web AR style power. I mean, in some sense, you're not downloading 1.4 million pieces of art on your phone. These are sitting on a CDN that's already on the internet. It allows you to kind of stream this information over, and you can have these kind of on-demand improvements to the things we do every day when it comes to e-commerce or purchasing or websites navigation. And it's these kinds of foundational pieces that I see, which tend to be the things that excite me the most.
Awesome. And I'm curious, the devices question, do you want to respond? How are you thinking about AR glasses and VR headsets?
This is constantly on my mind. I mean, I think when I talk about what we want to be doing at Eighth Wall, really the focus, we want to make sure that we're able to create web-based augmented reality content that works across all types of devices. Today the dominant technology platform is for sure smartphones. In the future, this may be headsets. But as this progresses, there's going to be a clear evolution where we probably have laptop computers and mobile phones and headsets, and we're going to expect our technology to work across all of these devices. I'm old enough to remember kind of the transition from desktop to mobile, where first it was like everything was desktop, and mobile web experiences were these awful things where you couldn't click the button and you couldn't see and you could barely kind of navigate, to this concept of mobile first design, where you redo your elements to make them work on small screens, to even kind of a mobile only viewpoint. And how do you do this? Finally, all back to these kinds of responsive designs, which is the more modern term for how to build a website that was going to work on a phone and work on a laptop, work on these devices. And I think we're going to see that progress to headsets as well. And so one of the key challenges that my team is hoping to facilitate this year is really that transition to immersive, responsive types of activations and the ability to have content that works across all of these types of devices.
Especially in Asia, where they kind of, in many instances, went to mobile first and skipped the computer altogether. I think it's going to be interesting how that's going to go. Well, very good. And Elizabeth, Unity, what are some of the use cases that you've seen that really stood out?
There are many. So I'm very happy to hear Eric talk about compatibility across all devices, because that does seem to be the key for adoption in the future. At Unity, especially in the enterprise space that I'm focusing on, there's a lot of work to add like gamification to the enterprise space. So thinking in a way that is really interactive, it has, branching and tells a story. There's a lot of work that's going on in that space. And in enterprise, a lot of it is really based on the foundation of the digital twin. The digital twin is the concept that what you have in the digital space is some type of a mirror of a possible product that you want in the physical space. So that's like the simplest explanation, but there's a lot of data that goes into what a digital twin is. So it's design data, user experience data, ergonomics, engineering, manufacturing process, quality information, supply chain information, like a ton of information. And so what's happening at Unity is using the editor as a platform for cross-functional collaboration and communication of all of those things. And so that is no small task. But when it's done, you get a cross-functional representation. So now the engineering teams can have a conversation with the design teams, manufacturing gets involved, and they actually see if they can make what they designed and engineered. And so that type of value is heavy. It is good. So it allows this holistic collaboration. It's contextual, so that what you're looking at is what you need to see and not a bunch of things you don't need to see. Because one of the problems with a lot of this tech, especially in the immersive space, is you might have so like TMI, just too much of a good thing, where you can't really focus on what the problem is that you're trying to solve, because you really need to see the relevant information, but you don't want to see the things that aren't going to impact the decision that you need to make to move forward. So it needs to be relatable to multiple functions and able to show the geometric model and all the associated data and metadata. And the real value is to show solutions to problems before problems occur. So there's a lot of goodness going on with digital twin and then representation of those different functions. And what's so exciting is, and I can talk forever on this.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we have time.
Just one last little thing is it allows you to be pervasive within the function. So you can represent these multiple areas together and gain insight in a way that's social and impactful and meaningful because you're like personally involved and connected.
Well, I do want to make sure we get enough time to allow some questions from our audience in Asia. And it is getting late there, and I know it's incredibly early for us. So thank you for waking up nice and early. Lewis and Catherine, anything you want to add about particular use cases relatively briefly that really stood out to you this past year? And then I have our first question lined up from our team in China.
The only thing I can think of just off the top of my head is the fact that e-commerce is really, or I call it v-commerce, is really taken off. I mean, statistics like Shopify that mention that they experience a 94% conversion rate on sales of products that feature 3D or AR content. And I think that's tremendous. And I think that's been a huge impetus for advertisers to invest more heavily in this space. Certainly we're seeing that at Mediamonks, that there's a very strong demand for augmented reality experiences. I think somebody mentioned the gamification of everything. That's certainly something that we're focusing on is, what is this branched narrative and storytelling? And so the relationship with customers is evolving in a very sophisticated way. And for me as an XR, creative strategist, technologist in my background, and at Mediamonks focusing on growth, this is really exciting. This is an exciting trend to observe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on what the others said. Basically, with our streaming approach, we exactly want to do two things. It's actually based also on Unity, so that's a great thing. And we want to enable cross-platform support, so streaming to different devices. So an app that is running on a server stream to different devices, so that the user decides which device fits best. And there are several examples in the automotive industry. We have things going on with BMW, the German car manufacturer. They exactly do these design reviews. They merge virtual prototypes with real hardware. They check assembly process and they make design decisions up to 12 months earlier. So it's exactly these use cases, and I couldn't agree more on that. And yeah, also to maybe to the audience, if you wanna check out these things and also implement streaming solutions, we have our ISA SDK available to all of you on GitHub. So if you want to check that out, then please do so. And yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a nice tie-in with automotive and sort of how that is all coming together as these new devices evolve. We are joined actually now by Stephen Zhang, the CEO of KiwiSense Technology, which is also a web AR solutions company, who has a question for us.
Hi, I'm Steven from KiwiSense. We focus on the AI technology, and we create all the AI algorithm based on our AI. We can track the foot to do the shoes try on, to do the face tracking with glasses try on. And right now we have a little question for Eric. Yeah, I'm really a big fan of you because from the very beginning of the KiwiSense, we are using the ACE-wall technologies for some times, but in China we actually can make it happen because you are based in maybe your service hosting in US. Yeah, so mostly in China we can get connected. So I have a very small question. So compared to the web AR abilities from like ARKit and AR Core, why there are so many clients still using your ACE-wall SDK as a web AR kit?
Tough one.
Okay, so we got a lot of things. So the first one was, what can we, certainly, there's challenges using the internet from in China when it comes to pulling content and assets from the United States or from other countries. I mean, that's certainly a challenge that we're well aware of. I mean, it's tricky to be a US-based software company and try to understand and debug some of the connectivity issues that happen in China. But certainly that's on our radar and things we're aware of. And certainly the team is always looking at opportunities to kind of improve general speeds and hosting throughout the globe. But I think certainly the China market is a special case when it comes to this. When it comes to why are people using eighth walls technology compared to things like ERIK or ERIK Core, when you talk about a technology like ERIK or ERIK Core or eighth wall, all three of these have a SLAM engine. This is something that Catherine was mentioning previously. The Apple and the Google one run natively on device. Ours run in the browser itself with a mixture of WebGL and WebAssembly. But in terms of like what are customers looking for, it's the ability to build and distribute immersive content. The type of platform surface doesn't matter so much as that it can get to the end user. And in the case of WebAR, the delivery mechanism is just incredibly easier to use than using native applications. And I think even if I were here to basically tell everybody in this room, go install this app that's in one of the app stores, that kind of conversion and drop-off rate is amazingly low. It's like in 2021, an app is a commitment. It's you work up to it. There has to be a reason that you're using this thing over and over again to put it on your phone. Whereas conversely, people browse websites and web pages and news panels all of the time. And what WebAR is offering is the ability to have instant immersive augmented reality on device in the same fashion that you'd see with the native app. I mean, technologies like ERIK and ERIK are doing the same thing. But the difference here is it just happens automatically. You don't have to think about a different device type. So WebAR on eighth wall is going to work on that Android phone. It's going to work on the Google phone. It'll work on the laptop or desktop. It can work on things like Surface tablet. I mean, there's certainly lots of different types of devices. And as a developer and as a brand and company, that's exactly what you want. You want universal reach across all device types. You want to build it exactly once. And you don't want to have the friction of app stores or installs or things that are going to prevent your content from getting in front of somebody.
Does that answer your question, Stephen?
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We are also now joined, I'm told, by Qian Li, founder and CEO of Pacific Future Technology, which is an AR hardware and software development company. So Qian, go ahead and our panelists are yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Qian Li from Pacific Future Technology. And Pacific Future is an AR hardware and software development company. And I have questions for all the panelists, basically. And is that we can see there is a huge demand in the VR industry, especially these 2 years. There is a lot of the demand in gaming and entertainment field. But for AR as a next smart wearable platform, what do you think will be the difference between the VR and hardware and AR and VR? Because VR has a very good applications in gaming and entertainment. But as an end user point of view, what would be the major application you think would happen in the next 2 years in the AR industry, especially in the AR wearable hardware?
I like it, a forward-looking question. So who wants to jump in? Where is AR going to go and how are we going to differentiate it with VR, which definitely does feel a bit more dominant? Okay, Catherine, I see a hand. Go ahead, you can start.
Well, I'm really excited about this and something that I look at very carefully. So trends in VR versus AR, we saw a lot of, specifically when we're looking at content and entertainment, 5G is going to enable us to do a lot more on our mobile phones than we were able to do even in the previous years. And we're also looking at new technologies like holograms and 3D performances that are going to be brought into your phone. And with that phone, you can project it. You can create duets like you do in TikTok. And so that I think is going to be one of the short-term trends that we see with augmented reality. This is before we get the eyeglasses. The eyeglasses are going to be very much like the iPhone moment where suddenly we have this vehicle that we think does something very specific, and then suddenly somebody picks it up and says, why don't we try something completely different? So as much as we can try to project what's going to be the use case, what will be the use cases, as much will depend on what the quality of the glasses and the amount of information. And you mentioned AI, that is very closely linked with AR. So the advancements in AI will definitely inform how we're able to use AR in the future, plus geolocation. So that's going to be really important to watch the confluence of these different technologies with the hardware.
So to build off Catherine's really great thoughts there, I think what the hard problem is for AR and MR is really around the performance. So if the physical world and the virtual world have any kind of disconnect, then it's really noticeable and impactful. And so all of the technologies that Catherine just mentioned are getting us closer to seamless interface between the virtual and physical, and a really close marriage between the data so that it would be indistinguishable to look at something and think, is that from the physical world or the virtual world? That's where we want to get to while we're in motion, while we're going about our daily lives. And I think that's what's so exciting about what Catherine just laid out for us.
I've got one final question here. It was just sent to me. I think this is a great way to close out today's panel as well. And the question, what sort of partnerships are you looking for in Asia? And what advice can you give to companies in Asia in the XR space as they look at with their global ambitions? So I don't know if anyone wants to start, maybe talking a bit. Lewis, do you want to maybe talk about sort of your experience working with Asia and any suggestions you might have?
So we work together with different kinds of companies, or types of companies, together with ISVs such as HOLO-LIGHT from Japan, with infrastructure providers such as Entity Docomo, or also enterprises, of course, from the automotive sector or other industries. And it depends on which type, definitely, because especially for the smaller companies, if I think about Unreal, for example, going to the German market, I mean, they're partnering with Deutsche Telekom, for example, here in Germany, trying to set up like a joint proposition that they are offering to enterprises. And I think that's a good approach. And here an infrastructure provider and a hardware provider work together. And then what's missing is like the software part. So we have in Europe and also in North America, lots of ISVs, lots of companies that provide solutions. So it's definitely worth getting in touch with them and talk about a joint proposition. And I think that these three components, like more on the 5G side in the future, so infrastructure, hardware, and software, that's like a full package that in the end the customers need. So if you're a hardware provider, then go look for the right solutions on your platform. And if it's like the other way around, I think these three components, they have to fit together.
Anyone else want to chime in regarding sort of partnerships or suggestions regarding organizations in Asia?
We actually have an agency in China. It's Mediamonks, but we bought tomorrow in China, and we're hiring really actively. So if you're in VR, AR, XR, these are the skill sets that are really required tomorrow. And this is one of the things that I think distinguishes Mediamonks in particular, is that we're looking for skill sets that are prepared for the digital world, the online world, the virtual world, because these are the tools and the way we're going to interface with the world, whether it's full immersion or partial immersion or using our mobile phones. This is the way we interact going forward. So please have a look at Mediamonks China and see if there are any opportunities for you. We would love to hear from you.
Well, it was a real pleasure to have an opportunity again to run a hybrid event. A special thanks to our panelists who took the time to connect with our Asian audience. It's always difficult with a time difference and with a hybrid event. A special thanks both to Catherine and Eric for braving the 5 a.m., 6 a.m. morning. And we always look forward to connecting with everyone. So feel free to reach out to any of our panelists with questions. We will have the recording of this session put on both our WeChat and YouTube channels. So feel free to contact us if you ever have additional information there. And we very much looking forward to seeing you at AW Asia, AW USA, or at a subsequent future All Night. Thank you very much.